Well, welcome to another Dante walkthrough. This time we're dealing with Inferno Canto 3. So if you've survived Cantos 1 and 2, that's all well and good. They can be a bit reflective, obviously by means of the fact that they're there to set up the characters, introduce you to them, and also the reasoning for the journey. So we've been through those. They are a little bit tougher at times, I think. So from Canto 3 on, really the real action begins. From now on, there will be places that we visit, interesting places, characters. It's far more interaction. This canto starts with the famous "Abandon hope, all who enter" piece of text. Probably nowadays a bit trivialised. It's even been used, I think, for the name of discos and bars, etc. But those 9 entry lines here it's really like the first portal of hell. It's as if it's that portal speaking to the players, the pilgrims here, Dante and Virgil. It is really very striking, both in its structure, its basic structure, and obviously in its content. We then move into hell proper, where we meet the first group of damned that will become familiar with this technique throughout the Inferno, and then later on in other parts of the Commedia. Here we meet initially the Uncommitted, Lignavi. So, and incidentally, if you're a fan of Dan Brown and his writing, if you have a look at his book of the Inferno, his novel, where he has a dedication inscription to the Lignavi, you'll find that he gets it all completely wrong. I'll leave you to have a look at that in connection with when you actually read and follow through on the canto. So who are the Uncommitted Lignavi? And what can we say about the way that about the representation of their punishment? So here we'll introduce the concept of what's called the il contrapasso, which is the way that the punishments fashioned in different parts of the Inferno, and then later on also they're sort of echoed in the Purgatorio, how they, in a way, reverse match the nature of the sin, of the weakness or whatever. We come across our first river in the Inferno, and we meet Caronte, the ferryman. His task is to ferry people across the first river, the Acheron. We'll come across several other rivers within the Inferno. And really, I guess we start to get a feel for how the pilgrim, Dante's reaction to these sights and what he's seeing. His first real encounter with the souls of the damned. We start to get a better feel for the relationship that will develop between Dante, the pilgrim, and Virgil, his guide. So with that as an intro, we'll get into it. Okay. So the canto opens effectively with Dante and Virgil in front of the first gate, first entry into hell. There is another gate further on that we strike at around about Canto 9, I think it is, which is the entry into the city of Dis, D-I-S, Dis, which is where the real nasty stuff happens. But this is not the first point of entry into the Inferno, into which we'll go into limbo and then the circles of what they call incontinence, sort of like the lesser sins in a way. So it's as if these 9 lines are quite powerful, and it's as if the gate itself is speaking, in a way to the entrance here. Through me you enter the city of sadness. Through me is the path to eternal pain. Through me you travel among the lost souls. In Italian it's quite powerful because each of these lines start with per me, via me, or through me. Per me si va nella città dolente. Per me si va nell'eterno dolore. Per me si va tra le perdute gente. Quite striking. First it's la città dolente, that doleful city. L'eterno dolore, eternal suffering and pain. And la perdute gente, the souls that are lost, the lost people. Justice moved my high creator. Giustizia mosse il mio alto fattore. I was made by divine power. Fecemi la divina potestate, the ultimate wisdom and love's origin. La somma sapienza il primo amore. So Gates saying that it's created by justice moved the Almighty to create the gate, the door, or hell in itself, not just the door, but the whole concept, the whole place we're entering. And it was made by these three elements: this divine power, ultimate wisdom, and love's origin, the very beginning of love as a entity, as a concept, or whatever. There was nothing created before I was made, unless it was eternal, and I will endure eternal. Abandon all hope, you who enter here. Dinanzi a me non furo cose create, se non eterne, e io eterno durò. Lasciate ogni speranza, voi che entrate. I think that last line is far more powerful in Italian than in whatever language, or in English as we translate it. Abandon all hope, you who enter here, but lasciate ogni speranza, voi che entrate just has a nice flow to it. And just again, those three characteristics that are mentioned, potestate, sapienza, amore, power, wisdom, and love, in Dante's mind are sort of more than in just Dante's mind, are the persons of the Trinity, the three components of the Trinity. I think he says in his some of his other writing, the Convivio, that there's a bit of a quote here: for the supreme power of the Father may be contemplated, the supreme wisdom of the Son, the supreme and most burning love of the Holy Spirit. So that mentioning those three words in that line 6 really pulls in the Holy Trinity of Christianity. And those that other mention to I was created eternal and will endure eternal sort of throws back to the creation of heaven and God creating, when Satan and the rebellious angels fell, he created hell to receive them. So again, it sort of echoes Matthew, one of the Gospels. Then he will say to those on his left hand, depart from me, accursed ones, into the everlasting fire, which is prepared for the devil and his angels. So, again, this will reflect in people's minds at the time reading, who would have known their Bible text and quite well. These words of dark colour I saw written over the arch of a door. Queste parole di colore oscuro vidi scritte al sommo d'una porta. And I said, the meaning of these words is hard. Perch'io, maestro, il senso loro m'è duro. So this duro can mean, hard to understand, but it can also mean, harsh and fearful, something pretty scary to come. And he to me is a person well versed. Ed egli a me come persona accorta. Here one must leave off any hesitation, any fear, and all cowardice truly set aside. Qui si convien lasciare ogni sospetto, ogni viltà convien che qui sia morte. So it's quite different in the Italian than the English. The sia morte is a much stronger ending to the terzina. We'll also find this habit that Dante has of where he's really ridden on the back of Virgil's Aeneid, because there's a piece in the Aeneid when Aeneas is about to enter hell there, the netherworld or whatever, the underworld, that the Sibyl says to him, now Aeneas, thou needest thy courage, now thy stout heart. So Virgil is sort of echoing what the Sibyl has said to Aeneas. So this constant flipping back and referring and using the pieces that Dante would have been very familiar with from the Aeneid is, I think it's quite strong early in the whole poem, but does start to taper off a bit. So you can nearly sense that when he was writing his first cantica, he was much more reliant on Virgil's story than he does as the poem progresses. In a sense, more and more he finds his own voice and his own philosophy of what he wants to express about that. We have arrived at the place I told you about, where you will see the tortured souls, who have lost the good of the intellect. Noi siamo venuti al loco ove io t'ho detto che tu vedrai le genti dolorose che hanno perduto il ben dell'intelletto. So the key line here is 18, I guess, che hanno perduto il ben dell'intelletto. They've lost the goodness of intellect. I think part of Aristotle's writings, teachings was that truth is in essence the good of the intellect, and that the supreme truth is the highest good of the intellect, which is really the creator, God, in a way. So this line echoes that sort of that Aristotelian thought about intellect. Truth is a representation, the best representation of man's intellect. So these souls here have lost that, and in a way they've lost the sight of God. And then he rested his hand on mine, giving me a gentle look that reassured me, leading me into those places hidden to man. So there's a touch of the tenderness here, because Virgil obviously knows that Dante's still pretty frightened about this is all scary stuff to him. E poi che la sua mano alla mia pose, con lieto volto ond'io mi confortai, mi misi dentro alle segrete cose. So these places are segrete cose, or hidden places, because normally a living being wouldn't be down here. They wouldn't know anything or see anything, and in essence this is the whole reasoning behind Dante relating back to the living reader on earth. These are the things I saw. You won't see them because queste sono le segrete cose. These are the hidden things from the living. So we now get 3 tessinas there where Dante attempts to describe the place he's at and what he's hearing and seeing. Here sighs, cries and loud wails resounded through the starless air, such that I also started to cry. Quivi sospiri, pianti e alti guai risonavano per l'aria senza stelle, perch'io al cominciar ne lagrimai. So it's really got to him what he's seeing here. Diverse languages, horrendous tongues, words of pain and cries of rage, voices both loud and faint, with the sound of hands beating. Diverse lingue, orribili favelle. Favelle could be tongues or accents, the manner of speech. Parole di dolore, accenti di ira, voci alte e fioche, e suon di manconelle. The suon di manconelle is the sound of hands slapping. So they're either slapping themselves or slapping each other, but that's the connotation of those words. And that line 23, where he says, L'aria senza stelle, the air, the starless air, is the first time we get that connotation that hell has no stars. The very, very closing line of the Inferno is Quivi uscimmo a rivedere le stelle. Every cantica in the Commedia ends, every single cantica, Inferno, Purgatorio, Paradiso, ends with the word stelle. And the very last line of the Inferno, when they eventually get out of the place, is here we came out again to see the stars. So hell is a place without stars, and this line 23 is the first time we learn that. So he's hearing these sounds of pain and cries of rage, hands beating, that raised such a tumult, forever stirring in that place time had forgotten, just as sand is swirled around in a whirlwind. Just a very simple simile there. Facevano un tumulto in qual s'aggira, sempre in quell'aria senza tempo tinta, come l'arena quando turba spira. So you can just hear that tessina has a real music to it to convey it's in a place Laura senza tempo tinta, tinted, a place tinted without time, a timeless place. And it's all this sound and tumult is like a whirlwind, come l'arena quando turba spira. A nice line. And again, the senza tempo is really reflects back on the words that opened the canto, that were above the door. That the hell was an eternal place. That there's no concept of time in here, and the fact we can't see the sun, the stars, etc. They're not visible, in the Inferno. And so in a way, you can't judge the movement of the earth or where you are. You're in a suspended place. And I, whose head was surrounded by this horror, said, Master, what is it I hear? Who are these people so enmeshed in pain? E io, che aveva d'orrore la testa cinta, dissi, Maestro, che è quel ch'iodo? E che gente è che per nel duol si vinta? That line 31 is one where commentators actually contest the wording in the manuscripts. E io che ave d'errore or d'orrore, of error or of horror. So I'm taking here the meaning of d'orrore, of horror. It doesn't seem to make sense of error to have that, but there's still arguments about that. And the reading of it as d'orrore is as used by a pretty famous Italian lady commentator, Anna Maria Chiavacchi Leonardi. She, an academic who passed away only a couple of years ago, and she must have devoted an awful amount of her life to the commedia. I think when she passed away, or she used to be known as La Donna della Commedia, the Lady of the Commedia. I've got the 3 books of her commentary. They're just quite amazing. Her knowledge of the work, the cross-referencing from words and phrases from one cantica to another. It's very obvious she's devoted an awful lot of time. So she, and to me it makes more sense to use that it's orrore horror, not error. And he to me, this miserable bunch is in this sad state, as they are the souls who lived with neither infamy nor praise. Ed egli a me, questo misero modo, tegnon l'anime triste di coloro che visse senza infamia e senza lodo. They're mixed amongst that nasty group of angels who were neither rebellious nor faithful to God, but kept to themselves. Mischiati sono a quel cattivo coro degli angeli che non furono ribelli, né fur fedeli a Dio, ma per sé fuoro. So the quel cattivo coro is that naughty, bad, evil chorus of angels. So there's been a fair amount of study and work done on really the tradition or the stories of neutral angels, because they don't actually get a mention in the Bible. And one of the commentators who's published on this, J. Frequero, in 1962, I'll just read a little bit from what he had to say. The neutral angels simply did not act as did those who rebel with Satan, but remained frozen in a state of aversion from God. It's pointless to ask whether they were better or worse than the lowest of sinners, for they do not fit into any category, after the initial division of heavenly light from heavenly dark. With the aversion from God, the bond of charity was smashed. With the abstention from action, they deprived themselves of the one positive element that could win them a place in the cosmos. They are as close to nothing as creatures can be and still exist, for by their double negation they have all but totally removed themselves from the picture. To be deprived of action is to be deprived of love, and love is the law of Dante's cosmos, determining all classifications. There remains nothing for them but the vaguely defined vestibule of hell, and they merit no more than a glance from the pilgrim before he passes on to the realm of love perverted. So Virgil continues his description. Heaven cast them out, not wanting to diminish its beauty, and hell's depth rejected them, as they would diminish the pure evil of those therein. Caccianmi il ciel per non essere men belli, né lo profondo inferno li riceve, che alcuna gloria il re avrebbe d'elli. So heaven didn't want to be essere men belli, to be less beautiful, and the depths of hell, etc., didn't want to taint them, because they really didn't want to taint the fact that they were pure evil. They didn't want these quasi-evil characters, they're a bit flaky, they're not really evil. It would give them a bad reputation. It's quite a one can understand the heaven one, but the one about hell is quite a bit funny in a way, because these guys, the real devils are saying, we don't want these guys because they're just not evil enough. And now Dante asks, and I, what so grieves them that they lament so strongly? He replied, I'll tell you, but in brief. E io, maestro, che è tanto greve, allor che lamentar li fassi forte? Rispose, diceroti molto breve. These souls have no hope of death, and their blinded lives are so low that they envy every other condition. Questi non hanno speranza di morte, hope of death, e la loro cieca vita è tanto bassa che invidiosi son d'ogni altra sorte. Altra sorte is other outcomes, so people in other conditions. The world allows no fame of them to be recorded. Mercy and justice hold them in disgust. Let's just forget about them. Look, but pass on. Fama di loro il mondo essere non lassa. Misericordia e giustizia le sdegna. Non ragioniam di lor, ma guarda e passa. So the piece about, in line 49, no fame or record of them, is allowed. We'll find with a lot of the people, a lot of the characters we meet in hell, that one of their desires, even though they're in hell, is to be remembered somehow, in the world above. This happens with Brunetto Latini and several others. To say misericordia e giustizia li sdegna, that mercy and justice just treat them with disgust, it's really that man's supposedly saved by God's mercy and in a sense condemned by his justice. So it's saying really that the uncommitted are despised by God and by the world, so they're rejected by both in this case. It's a powerful last line to that tercina number 51. Non ragioniam di loro. Let's not reason about them, or let's not think about them. Ma guarda e passa. That line, ma guarda e passa, but look and pass. But Dante doesn't quite do what he's told here, as he says, and I, continuing to look, saw a flag that ran and swirled so rapidly that it seemed disdainful to the slightest pause. Io, che riguardai, vidi una zegna like an insignia, che gridando correva tanto ratta, che d'ogni posa mi parea indegna. So the mi parea indegna, it seemed indifferent to any movement, the flag he's talking about here, the ensign that he sees being run along. The scene will unfold because, as he says, and following it came a long line of people that I could not believe death had undone so many. E dietro le venia si lunga tratta di gente, che io non avrei creduto che morta tanta n'avesse disfatta. What a nice tercina, that one, with the words venia la lunga tratta di gente and then end with morta tanta n'avesse disfatta. The long file of people, and then at the end, death to so many had undone them. And amongst them I thought I recognised some. I saw and clearly knew the shade of he who, through cowardice, made the great refusal. Poscia ch'io avebbi alcun riconosciuto, vidi e conobbi l'ombra di colui che fece per viltade il gran rifiuto. Okay, so who is this guy he recognises, who he says the one who made the great refusal? So we're going to have to spend a little bit of time on this. Who he's identified in Dante's mind is Celestine V, who was the Pope, who abdicated or resigned and made way for Boniface VIII. Now Boniface VIII was the Pope who was in Rome in power when all Dante's troubles beset him, and throughout the poem, Dante really heaps it on him, sort of in lots of many, and really not subtle. It's very clear that he had an incredible dislike for this guy. So Celestine V was Pope for only a very short period. It was at a time when the conclave, or the group who choose the Pope, had for a very long time, many months, been able to agree. And Celestine, who was actually a hermit, a sainted man who lived a hermit's life, Pier da Morone was his name. They basically decided, well, let's get this guy to be pope in a way, probably as a stand-in for a while until they could resolve political issues. But being really a very simple person, I think it was nearly 80 when they dragged him to Rome. The whole machinations and political environment of the papacy at that time was just too much for him. And there's also stories, I don't know if they're true, but that Boniface, played on his fears and concerns, even spooking him at night, supposedly behind the curtains with voices. I don't know whether that's true, but some say that. In any case, Celestine V abdicated. He went back to his hermit living. Boniface VIII took over. Actually had Celestine, Pierre as he would have been then called, Pierre de Morone, sort of semi-imprisoned or guarded, and he passed away a few years later, some saying that he was probably terminated by Boniface VIII, who turns out to be not a particularly nice character, and particularly not as far as Dante's concerned, as I mentioned. So there's a lot in this. I'd also mention how in that very first walkthrough we did on Canto 26, how Dante served as a inspiration or as a thought provoker to many other writers and poets. And so we've got a classic example here where the Greek poet Constantine Cavafy, who I'll put the text of the poem that he wrote about this instance, not so much about it, but about the feeling behind it. Cavafy is a poet that wrote in the early 1900s, lived in Alexandria, and he writes a poem literally titled Che feci il gran rifiuto. So I'll just read that out for you. So this is a translation from the Greek. For some people the day comes when they have to declare the great yes or the great no. It's clear at once who has the yes ready within him, and saying it, he goes from honour to honour, strong in his convictions. He who refuses does not repent. Asked again, he'd still say no, yet that no, the right no, drags him down all his life. So I quite like that poem, but make of it what you will. So that's Constantine Cavafy, Cavafy. He's got some really marvellous pieces, and all obviously translated from the Greek, so it sort of depends on what version, what translation you get to have a different sort of feel when you read them, but can definitely recommend having a look for him. Also, there's only really been 3 papal resignations in the history of the papacy. There's this first one of Celestine V, then there was, I think, Gregory XII, but that was more to really settle a split in the church, what's called the Western Schism, and that was in 1415, and the next one doesn't occur until 2013, right, in our times when Pope Benedict the 16th, just recently, renunciated the papacy. So it's a pretty rare event, and we haven't really had one for 500 years or so. So here's Dante down in Canto 3, looking at this group of uncommitteds chasing after this flag, this rag that's fluttering on a pole, and everybody's chasing around. And he thinks he recognises one, or at least he puts into the poem at this point that he recognises one, who is unmistakably Celestine V, who, made the great refusal and allowed Boniface VIII, really Dante's mortal enemy in a way, to ascend the papacy and cause him so much grief. So whilst we've got a minute, we'll talk about this concept of the contrapasso in the poem, which is the way that the punishments are fashioned to be the inverse of what's happened to the group of individuals. So these are the uncommitteds who in life would not make a decision. They wouldn't go, yes, I'll go with that, or no, I'll make and wouldn't make a firm decision. So here they're portrayed as chasing after a flag, like a rag that's running around and it's swirling, and they're just non-stop. That what they couldn't pursue in life by committing to some cause, but in whatever fashion, here in hell they're condemned for eternity to chase a meaningless rag that somebody's running around with, as though it had some great importance to them. So he goes on to say, I immediately and with certainty understood that this was that horrid group disliked by both God and his enemies. Incontanenti intesi, e certo fui, che questa era la setta di cattivi, a Dio spiacente e a nemici sui. And the contrapasso really continues with this next terzina from line 64. These wretches who were never alive were naked and constantly being stung by swarms of wasps and blowflies. Questi schiaurati, che mai non fur vivi, erano ignudi e stimolati molto da mosconi e da vespe, che erano ivi. This made their faces ooze with blood, which mixed with their tears gathered at their feet to feed nauseous worms. Ella rigavandi loro di sangue il volto, che, mischiato di lacrime al loro piede, di fastidiosi vermi era ricolto. So a pretty nasty scene, and so it's the continuation of the contrapasso where these people are they're naked and constantly stung by swarms of wasps and bugs and blowflies and everything. That it's oozing, where they're being stung is being oozed with blood, and they're crying, and at their feet are swarms of worms feeding on this mixture. So the contrapasso being that in life they were not able to be stimulated by a cause, by a belief, an argument to commit to it. So here in hell they are constantly being stimulated, but in a way that's most unpleasant. So really now that the scene moves on, we sort of finish with this cameo of the Lignavi, the Uncommitted, and he says, when I cast my sight further on, I saw people gathering on the bank of a wide river, and I asked, Master, allow me to know who these people are and what edict compels them to strive to cross so eagerly. So it appears to me in this dull light. So sorry, I'll run those through two terzinas together. E poi, che a riguardar oltre mi diede, vidi genti alla riva d'un gran fiume, perch'io disse, Maestro, or mi concedi, chi sappi quali sono e qual costume li fa trapassar parea si pronto, come dicerno per lo fioco lume. So we've got vidi genti alla riva d'un gran fiume, seeing people on the bank, on the coast of a great river, of a great stream. They're eager to pass. Fa di trapassar parea si pronte, and he could see this through the dull light, lo fioco lume. And he replied, these things will become apparent when we rest our journey there on the sad bank of the river Acheron. So we get the naming of the river. Ed egli a me, le cose ti fier conte, quando noi fermerem i nostri passi sulla trista riviera d'Acheronte. Then, lowering my eyes in shame, fearing he was sick of my questions, I held my tongue till we reached the river. Allora, con gli occhi vergognosi e bassi, temendo non mio dir li fosse grave, infino al fiume del parlar mi trassi. Some nice words in that terzina, vergognosi e bassi. Vergognosi is like shameful, and del parlar mi trassi, to cease my speaking. And there appeared coming towards us in a boat an old man with white hair and aged, yelling, Woe to you, evil beings! Ed ecco verso noi venire per nave, bianco per antico pelo, gridando, Guai a voi, anime prave! Un vecchio bianco per antico pelo, an old man, white, antico pelo, skin, aged skin. So he continues yelling, You have no hope of ever seeing heaven. I am here to carry you to the other shore, into the eternal gloom of heat and cold. Non sperate mai vedere lo cielo. I vengo per menarvi all'altra riva, e le tenebre eterna, in caldo en gelo. So this old man is Charon, Charon, is the son of Erebus, and he's the ferryman who transports the souls of the dead across the rivers of the lower world. Later on Dante refers to him as having saggy cheeks, lanose gotte, and fiery eyes, occhi di fiamma. Again, this is a direct lift from the Aeneid, from the way Virgil describes the scene. in virtually the same way. A grim warden guards these waters and streams, terrible in his squalor. Charon, on whose chin lies a mass of unkempt hoary hair, his eyes are staring orbs of flame. His squalid garb hangs by a knot from his shoulders. Unaided he poles the boat, tends the sails, and in his murky craft conveys the dead. Now aged, but a god's old age is hardy and green. So for readers at the time who would have been familiar with the Aeneid, they're in familiar territory here when when Caronte appears in his boat, yelling at the people on the shore. But Caronte notices something that's not quite right, and we go on at line 88. And you there, living beings, step aside from those now dead. When he saw that I didn't move, e tu che sei costi, anima viva, partiti da cotesti che son morti, ma poi che vide io non mi partiva. And again we have that break that moves from one terzina to the next. He said, by another way, through another entry, you will come to shore and pass over there. A boat more trim will carry you. Disse, per altra via, per altri porti, verrei a piaggia, no qui per passare. Più lieve legno convien che ti porti. Lieve legno being a light boat, a trim boat, convien che ti porti, will carry you. We now get a reply from Virgil, which he'll reuse again in Canto 5, to the same effect, to sort of placate one of the guardians, one of the beasts at the entry of a particular area. And he said, my master replied, Charon, don't trouble yourself. It is thus willed, where will and power are one, so ask no more. And in Italian, it's a very musical, quite a beautiful piece. El duco lui, Charon, non ti cruciare, volsti così colà dove si puote, ciò che si vuole e non più dimandare. Those last two lines, the 95 and 96, the antidote to the troublesome guardian Caronte, in this case, in Canto 5, for Circle 2, it'll be Minos being the guardian. So again, it's volsi così colà dove si puote, ciò che si vuole e non più dimandare. It's thus willed, where will and power are one combined. So don't ask anymore. Don't object. Let him pass. His saggy jowls fell silent, that pilot of the swampy dark waters, and his eyes were circled by flames. Quincy furqueta le lanose gote, al nocchier della livida paruda, che intorno agli occhi avea di fiamma rote. So we've got rote that rhymed with gote, rote being rotated, the flames were around his eyes, and the lanose gote, the saggy jowls, the nocchier, the navigator of the la livida paruda, it's a nice form of words, the stinking waters, really, the dark, horrible, swampy waters of the river. But those souls who were naked and exhausted, and pale in colour, with chattering teeth, they heard his cruel words. Ma quell'anime che erano lasse nude, cangià colore e dibatterò i denti, ratto che ne intese le parole crude. The lasse nude is a nice form of words, the tired and nude, and dibatterò i denti, their chattering teeth. Ratto, which is fast, so they're quick, their chattering teeth are fairly rapid. And we now get some description of the condition these people are in and what they're feeling. They curse God, their parents, the human race, the time and place of their conception and birth. Bestemmiavano Dio e i loro parenti, l'umana spezia, il loco e il tempo, il seme di loro semenza e di loro nascimenti. That's a very powerful terzina, that one. They bestemmiavano, they cursed God, they swore at God and their parents and the whole human species, the time and place of their seeding, when they were conceived, and when they were actually born. So they curse their very existence. So these people are not just the uncommitted; they're all the souls that have gathered down on the shore from whatever failing that they've had in life. So it's not just Lignavi. Then they all gathered together, weeping bitterly, on that evil shore, that is there for all who don't fear God. Poi si ritrasse tutte quante insieme, forte piangendo alla riva malvagia, che attende ciascun uomo che Dio non teme. That demon Charon, with eyes of glowing embers, gathered them aboard, whacking them with his oar, any who were too slow. Charon, demonio, con occhi di braglia loro accendono. Tutte le raccoglie, batta col remo, qualcunque si adagia. And now a quite simple simile to just show the attitude of these people as they throw themselves into the boat. Just as in autumn the leaves drop one after the other until the tree sees all its spoils on the ground, so did the evil seeds of Adam throw themselves from the shore one by one at his call, as a falconer with his whistle. Come d'autunno si levan le foglie, l'una appresso l'altra, fin che il ramo vede alla terra tutte le sue spoglie. Similmente il mal seme d'Adamo gittansi di quel lito ad uno, cenni come Ogel per suo richiamo. So it's as if they just all drop into the boat, just one by one, quite rapidly, just as something's driving them in there. And there's the simile of the falconer, who makes the call and the bird returns. So it happens all fairly automatically in a way. And so they go over the dark waters. Before they reach the other side, here a new group already gathers. Così sen vanno su per l'onda bruna, e avanti che sian della discesa, and before they even have descended, anche di qua nuova schiera s'auna. My son, said my master most courteous, all who die in the wrath of God from whatever place assemble here, and are ever keen to cross the river, for divine justice spurs them on, and their fear turns to longing. Explanation as to why the characters, the souls, are so agitated and keen to get on the boat. It's divine justice that's spurring them on. Figliol mio, disse il maestro cortese, quelli che morion nell'ira di Dio, tutti convegnon qui d'ogni paese, e pronti sono a trapassar l'orio, che la divina giustizia li sprona, sì che la tema si volve in desio. So that last line, la tema si volve in desio, the fear turns around into desire. E pronti sono a trapassar l'orio, they're ready they are to traverse the river. And he continues, a good soul never passes through here. So if Charon complains about you, you can well understand why. Quinci non passa mai anima buona, e però, se Charon di te si lagna, ben puoi saper ormai che il suo dir suona. Il suo dir suona is like his speaking is loud, like you can understand why he's yelling and complaining about you. When he had finished, the dark surrounds trembled so strongly that from that fright and its memory I break out again in a cold sweat. Finito questo, la buia campagna, tremo si forte, che dello spavento la mente di sudor ancora mi bagna. La buia campagna, the dark countryside, and di sudor ancora mi bagna, of sweat, it still wets me. This is from the fear of that moment. The tear-soaked ground gave up a wind, flashing with a vermilion light that overcame all my senses, and I fell as a man overcome by deep sleep. La terra lagrimosa diede vento, che baleno una luce vermiglio, la quale mi vinse ciascun sentimento, e cade come l'uomo cui sonno piglia. And I fell as a man of whom sleep catches or takes away. It was thought at the time that earthquakes in the medieval period, were caused by windy vapours and things imprisoned within the earth. So, hence you've got the trembling, and you've got this thing about the wind and the vermilion light. So it's basically, for the reader at the time, it would have been all the words that symbolise, some sort of an earthquake. And here, and it's only, I think, 2 times in Inferno when Dante faints or is overcome. It's here and again at the end of Canto 5. And here he just swoons in a way, as he says, as somebody overcome by sleep just grabs him. So maybe he's just tired, he's exhausted, it's all been too much. As we move on, as we start the journey and then move along, we find that, in a way, Dante, the pilgrim, the character in the story, becomes, at first he's quite overcome and awed and fearful of the things he sees, but with time he sort of begins to acclimatise and get used to it. It's quite interesting to watch this progression as we move on. So it's here that the canto finishes, Canto 3. So we're effectively crossing to the other side, and Dante and Virgil in the boat with Charon and some of the souls that Charon is conveying. And it's all been too much for Dante, and he's basically just collapsed in exhaustion and fallen into a sleep. So we'll be back just shortly to summarise and make a few comments about the canto. So with Canto 3, we open with those dramatic words above the portal to hell, with those 3 lines that begin with "Per me si va," through me you go to. But we soon find out that this is not hell proper. It's like the anteroom to hell. So in fact, Circle 1 starts over the river, and we've got really 2 classes of occupants here assembled. We've got those who are, in a way, the focus of the canto, the lignavi, the uncommitted, and we've got every other damned soul that's destined to cross the river to hell proper. Now, the uncommitted, they'll be staying behind here in effectively like no man's land, forgotten and ignored. They've got no hope of death, as it says in line 46. Questi non hanno speranza di morte. These souls have no hope of death. Even the more grievous sinners that are crossing over will undergo the final judgment and, to some form of resolution. But not these, not the uncommitted. And hence, really, they envy any and all of the other sinners. So it's why in line 48 we've got that. They envy every other condition. Che invidiosi son d'ogni altra sorte. Because that's not going to happen to them. And it's also why Virgil says to Dante, look, let's just forget them. Just look, but pass on. It's quite a powerful line. Ma guarda e passa. So what's the fundamental message here? What's Dante saying or alluding to? And it really resonates down to all of us in our own time. It's probably an eternal message, just like, that line early on, E io eterno duro, and I eternal will endure, line 8. It's unchanging for all of us in some form that, all of us have within us some form of moral framework. And it's the moral framework that we have which helps us make decisions of our own free will. There'll be an awful lot of discussion about free will in the Paradiso. But, for we inhabitants of the 21st century, we readers, this framework can really be anything. It can be Christian dogma and beliefs, Buddhist, Islamic, humanistic, or it could be a set of rational values that we've derived in some way from the Enlightenment and things that have come beyond that. Many today profess to be agnostic or atheistic or whatever, but they still live by a moral code or structure that guides their actions and their decisions. All of us, probably more than once in our lives, will have to make a decision that's guided by our moral framework and hopefully the integrity of our beliefs in that framework. And some of those decisions we may know will cause us harm. It might be making a particular call in a work situation that we know will put us out of favour, but, which we honestly believe is the correct thing to do. It can be many, many things, but I think one thing is for sure, that we'll all recognise them when they arrive. Our friend, the Greek poet, Constantine Cavafy, I think has hit this point with the poem that he was inspired to write from this canto, and which we read, and I've put it on the video version. But just to repeat, I'll just read the text. So titled, Che fece il gran rifiuto. For some people, the day comes when they have to declare the great yes or the great no. It's clear at once who has the yes ready within him, and saying it, he goes from honour to honour, strong in his conviction. He who refuses does not repent. Asked again, he'd still say no, yet that no, the right no, drags him down all his life. So sometimes the yes is easy to comply with. And some have within them the no that they have to give. Their moral code, their moral framework compels them to give the no, even knowing that so doing can drag him down all his life, as Cavafy says. The uncommitted really never face up to this. They squibbed it effectively, and being, as the Bible said, neither hot nor cold, they get vomited out, and they're condemned to this no man's land, this antechamber to hell. One thing Cavafy omits from his poem, and it's in the title, he leaves out from Dante's original line 60, where Dante says, the line reads, "Che fece per viltà il gran rifiuto," who through cowardice made the great refusal. So Cavafy omits from his poem in the title, he leaves out the word through cowardice as the reason. Instead, in his poem, his interpretation is that the giver of the no is really acting through bravery, in fact, and they know, and they will give the no again. They know that they will suffer as a result of that. So I think the crux here that resonates to us all is, do you have the courage to make the right call when you really need to? I think this is the underlying message that, or the thought exercise, if you like, that Dante raises in our mind. We meet for the first time the concept of the contrapasso, as a literary device, but it's quite a stark device. And sadly, the concentration of many people in reading the Inferno and others in depicting it is on the actual sinner's suffering, the gore and nastiness and the punishments. But I think you need to go beyond that to the message that is there in the encounter. So just as here we see Lignavi being stung and molested by beetles and wasps, etc. And it's a very it's an unpleasant picture that's painted. Really, the underlying message really is about commitment and making the right choice when the time comes. And we meet in Caronte, the first guardian or one of the denizens of the Inferno. They're there to perform a certain function, and we'll come across several of them. It's similar to, in his case, Caronte, it's similar to in the Aeneid, he's there to ferry the sinners over to hell proper. Dante himself, the pilgrim, the character in the poem, is clearly shocked by these first encounters, and I guess that's why Virgil's a bit gentle with him. He puts his hand on him and sort of hand on his hand and sort of tries to gently calm him. And he steps forward and makes that rebuttal to Caronte, to leave Dante alone. It's ordained when he gets when Caron addresses him and says, you're not meant to be here. Virgil, lets him know that he's ordained to make this journey. We can recall, it's really the three sainted ladies that have set the whole thing in motion. And there's that terzina, the two lines in that terzina that's a bit like a magician's formula, lines 95 to 96. Volsi così là dove si pote ciò che si vuole e non più dimandare. It's thus willed, where will and power are one, so don't ask anymore. The terzina at lines 103 to 105 pretty chillingly sums up the state of the damned that they're in. This is the one about they curse God, their parents, the human race, the time and the birth of the time and the place of their conception and birth. It's a fairly strong statement. Bestemmiavano Dio e loro parenti, l'umana spezia, e il loco e il tempo, e il seme di loro semenza e di loro nascimenti. So for Dante, the pilgrim, the character in the end, he's basically mentally exhausted, and he succumbs to sleep. Sonno lo piglia, sleep overpowers him, and he's to reawaken in the next canto at the shores of Limbo in Circle 1 of Hell. So all going well, we'll meet again there. As ever, any comments, please leave them in the appropriate fields on the YouTube site, and Thanks for listening. Bye for now.